So good afternoon, everyone. In the last class, we were discussing about Gupta age, and there we talked about some of the important rulers, including Chandragupta first. Then we talked about Samudragupta, and we were discussing the details of Chandragupta second. That is where we had ended our discussion. Do you find any difficulty in understanding the topics that we have discussed till now? Did you revise it at home? Okay, did you look at the questions on your own? PYQs? Try doing that as well. See, this is something that we are anyway doing in the class, but you should also try to look at the questions on your own, because sometimes what helps a lot if you remember what kind of questions have been asked or which are the options that have been given. Because most often you will find this happening with multiple questions, that UPSC takes up one wrong option from a particular question after a few years, and they make a question on that. Okay, so if you are able to identify some of the important, let's say, literary scholars upon whom they are asking questions, or if you are able to identify some of the important literary pieces or some of the sites, that will help you a lot in preparing better. So keep revising the questions as well that we have discussed here, and other questions as well which have been asked during previous year. In ancient India, ancient and art and culture specifically, what I'll suggest you to do, go through the questions of 2000, let's say 10 or 9 as well. So not only 10 years questions, but 20 years or 15 years questions, because back then also questions on terminologies were being asked, or questions on literature was being asked. So you will be able to know about some more literary pieces, some more sites that will be in your favor only. Okay, so let us start the discussion today. We'll resume our discussion on Gupta age, we'll complete that, and after that we are going to talk about post-Gupta age. From examination perspective, post-Gupta age is also an important topic in a cultural sense. Again, that is one barrier that we have to put there, that we don't need to mug up names of all the rulers. What we have to do, we need to know about some of the important rulers. And in post-Gupta era, you will find very few names which you should know about, where the focus should lie on the cultural development. So development of literature, development of architecture. Okay, so that is going to be our course of discussion for today. We were discussing details of Chandragupta second. What had we completed? I remember, I am asking you. You don't have to tell me what we had completed. We had completed till Fayan. I am asking you, what do you remember? Okay. What is Fayan writing about? Okay, so he is putting a lot of emphasis upon social aspects. He is talking about the condition of women, he is talking about the lifestyle of people, he is talking about people being vegetarian at large scale, he is talking about the institution of untouchability. These are all the details that Fayan is discussing. What we find strikingly missing in Fayan's account? Political details. Okay, that is one major difference between Fayan's account and Wensang's account. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. When we talk about Prayag Prashasti or Allahabad pillar inscription, who has composed it? Hari Sen. And for whom it has been composed? Samudra Gupta. Where is it located? Allahabad. Okay, that is the name of the Prashasti itself. Okay, so these are the details that we should keep in mind. What is a Prashasti? A type of inscription in which political and cultural achievements of a ruler has been inscribed in an exaggerated manner. So the first term that we should be using, a type of inscription. Okay, that is the key term to be used. Chalo, you people remember a few things that we have discussed. Now let us move forward. So we had talked about the political marriage alliance of Chandragupta's daughter into Vakataka family. We talked about the importance of Pune plate as well in terms of Prabhavati Gupta asserting her own identity, as well as in the context of that inscription being important to know the genealogy of Gupta rulers. It also tells us that gradually rulers are shifting from stone to copper plate inscriptions. Why was that happening? Proliferation in the number of land grants in far off areas. Okay, so land grants are being given to Brahmins at large scale and at the same time to some of the officials as well. Since they are being granted the lands in far off areas, they need to carry the royal proclamation as well. So the base material should be of something which should last longer, which should be easy to carry, and the cost of that material should be cheaper. So in that context, a better choice was copper plate inscriptions, because when we talk about stone, it will be hard to carry to far off areas. Is this clear? Chalo, now we had also discussed the account of Fahyan, what Fahyan talks about when he is writing details of Indian subcontinent, particularly of northern India. So when he is talking about all those aspects of people's lives, we also understood that most of the things that he is discussing are accurate. What was the reason behind it? He is a Buddhist monk. He is traveling to different areas of Indian subcontinent, interacting with people, trying to understand the socio-cultural milieu of Indian subcontinent. That gave him an edge in comparison to people like Megasthenes. Okay, so that is a major difference that we need to remember. Access to people, willingness to understand the socio-cultural milieu, and knowledge of the language being spoken here. All these things become important. Okay. What else should we remember about Chandragupta II? He is the one who is shifting the capital from Prayag to Ujjain. So we know that Guptas also had two capitals, one in Prayag and second in Ujjain. Okay. We also should remember that he had Navaratnas, 9 jewels in his court. And people who are in his court are literary scholars. When we are talking about these 9 jewels, some of them are literary figures. Some of them are architects. So Shanku is a particular person who is an architect. A very interesting name of Baital Bhatt will come, who was a magician. So all kind of sciences and disciplines were being patronized by Chandragupta II. Why I emphasized upon the magician? There is this particular reason. See, UPSC has asked a question on Sangam literature, and they had given this statement that people of Sangam era did not believe in magic. They believed in magic. And when we are talking about Gupta age also, here also we have a person in the 9 jewels who was a magician. So that is one reason why I am emphasizing upon these things. When I showed you pictures from Harappan civilization, there also I showed you references to the presence, possible presence of totem. Okay, so when we are talking about ancient societies or medieval societies, magic is something which people believed in. To what extent did they believe in it? That can be questioned, and we cannot know exactly about that. But we do know that these people used to believe in magic as well. Is this clear? Now let us talk about the iron pillar. Where is it situated? Mehrauli Qutub complex, Delhi. So, when we are talking about Chandragupta II, he also erected an iron pillar. And a very interesting thing about that iron pillar is that it has not rusted yet. If you go to that location, you will see that it is standing out in the open. बारिश आ रही है, धूप पड़ रहा है, everything is affecting that pillar, but it has not rusted yet. So it tells us about the technological advancement which was present during that period. Okay, that is a very prominent cultural example, and Chandragupta II is credited with erection of that iron pillar. Remember that as well when we are talking about Chandragupta II. There is a very prominent person, Kalidas, in his court. We'll talk about the writings of Kalidas and Amar Singh. He was also one of the 9 jewels. We'll talk about them under the subheading of literature. But remember, these people were being patronized by Chandragupta II. I am asking you to remember these 2 names particularly. Amar Singh, what is the possible reason that he is important for us to remember? Amar Kosh. UPSC keeps asking questions on ancient texts which were written on grammar. So Amar Kosh is also a text talking about Sanskrit grammar. UPSC has asked a question on Panini, on Patanjali. The possible question can be on Amar Singh. Okay, so we should remember his name, that Amar Singh was patronized by Chandragupta II. Kalidas, very important. UPSC has asked questions on his writings. It can ask questions on his writing again. So we should know that Kalidas was patronized by Chandragupta II. Is this much clear? So let us move forward to a few more rulers. Kumar Gupta is another ruler whose name you should remember in cultural context. Why is he important? Because he is the one establishing Nalanda University. That is why his name becomes important. Another name you can remember, that is of Skandagupta. Why Skandagupta becomes important? He renovated the Sudarshan Lake again. So Sudarshan Lake, renovation done by Rudradaman, and during the time of Skandagupta as well it is happening. Huna attack had also happened during his time, which he repelled. Junagadh inscription, see, when we are talking about Junagadh inscription, it is from post-Mauryan period. Okay, so there was this lake, Sudarshan Lake, built during Mauryan period. We get to know about the reference in post-Mauryan period, Shaka inscription, Rudradaman's Junagadh Prashasti. Here again, Sudarshan Lake. This is the same lake which Skandagupta will also get repaired. So you get to know the history of a lake. And this becomes very interesting because we are talking about a time where there is paucity of sources to know basic details about people's lifestyles. More often than not, we don't know a lot about the kings or queens as well. And here we get to know about a particular lake so much, that how it was being renovated in different time periods by different rulers. So this lake becomes very important in the cultural history of Indian subcontinent. Is this clear? So remember this much when we are talking about the rulers. Now let us move forward to the next segment, that will be of administration. So when we are talking about administration, what was the basic tenet of Gupta administration? They'll also be divided into various provinces, various districts, various villages. So that kind of division is going to be here as well. And there are going to be various terms associated with it. So bhukti will be one term which will be used in the context of a prant or a province. Okay, and Uparika is going to be the official who will head over the bhukti. Vishaya, so Vishayapati will be the official. So remember these terms. If there is this term bhukti being given, that means administrative unit. Uparika, administrative official. Okay, so this way you need to prepare this particular period, or this particular section we should say. During any time period, you need to know about the important terms which were used in administrative system. Gramadi will be the term. There is another term which has been found, Mahattar. That is another term that you can remember in the context of governance of villages. Is that clear? Now, when we are talking about the rulers taking particular titles, what are the titles that these rulers are taking? Maharaja, Dhiraj, Param Bhattarak, Parameshwar. So from Devanam Piya, Piyadasi, to Devaputra, to Parameshwar themselves. We are reaching here where rulers are calling themselves a form of God. Okay, so that is the way of taking legitimacy for their rule. Is there any other official about whom we should know? There is this particular post of Sandhi Vigrahak. It is very much clear by the name itself. Sandhi Vigrahak, that means the one who is negotiating war and peace. Okay? हाँ, पोस्ट वॉर जो रिकंसिलिएशन हो रहा है, पीस, उसके टर्म्स को नेगोशिएट करना. सो संधि विग्राहक इज अनदर official. So when you are studying administration, look at these kind of important terminologies for the prelims perspective. Is this clear? Now when we are coming to economy, what is happening in economy? When we talk about Gupta economy, expansion of agriculture was happening. Here we also find some of the terms which denote measurement of land. What are those terms? Angul, Hasta, Drodavap, Kulyavap. These are the units of measurement. जैसे बचपन में ऐसे अगर आपने किया हो, ये खेल वेल हम लोग खेलते थे तो ऐसे गिनते थे कि इतनी उंगली का जगह तुम्हारा है, इतने हाथ का जगह तुम्हारा है, ऐसे करके जगहें डिवाइड करते थे. दैट बिकेम अ पार्ट ऑफ पॉपुलर मेमोरी एज वेल. सो अंगुल, हस्त, द्रोणवाप, कुल्यवाप, all these are measurement units. In which context? For land measurement. Okay, that is another thing that we can remember. Now, when we are talking about the cropping pattern going to remain the same, technique of irrigation, that is also going to remain the same. Okay. When we are talking about craft production, during this period also, craft production is going to happen. Trade is going to happen. With whom? Romans. So with Roman Empire, trade was happening. But what eventually happened, that Roman Empire started declining. So when Roman Empire will start declining, long distance trade in a Gupta period will also start declining. So there is a phase of growth, of development in long distance trade. But after a point of time, what is going to happen? It is going to gradually decline. Is this clear? So this is something that you need to remember, that there is a phase of growth. It will reach a peak and then there is a phase of decline in long distance trade. Okay. How do we get to know about it? Some of these cities will be evicted by the crafts people. That is one thing. Second, when we are looking at Gupta coins, there is a de-evaluation of coins. They issued gold coins in large numbers, more than what Kushanas had issued. And we use the term dinar. Dinar is a term used for Gupta gold coins. So when we are looking at the gold coins, the content of gold in those coins was gradually decreasing. So that tells us about the devaluation of these coins. There is another term in this context, rupiyak, that is denoting silver coins. Okay, so rupiyak or dinar, that will denote coins during Gupta period. Is this much clear? If we have to talk about some important centers of trade, so Prayag will be one of the centers, Banaras will be another center, Ujjaini, Mandsaur, Ghantashala, Kadura, they are going to be important economic sites. And gradually some of these sites declined as well. For example, the site of Mandsaur, the site of Vaishali. They were centers of important economic production, but they were gradually declining. Vaishali will remain important for cultural reasons, not for economic reasons. Is this clear? But when we are talking about decline of cities, are all the cities going to decline? Or will some of them still survive? क्यों survive करेंगे कुछ? What might be the possible reason? थोड़ा सा तेज. लेकिन लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस स्ट्रेट टू डिक्लाइन हो रहा है. When we talk about cities, they are centers of non-agricultural production. Agricultural production तो village हो जाएगा. See, cities which are important political centers or cities which are important cultural centers, they are going to survive. Let's say if there is a particular temple which is present in a city or a particular stoop which is present in a city and people are flocking there for the purpose of worship, for the purpose of tirth, that is going to survive. If there is an important university in a particular city and people are flocking there for the purpose of getting education, that city is going to survive. Wherever these rulers are going to reside, that place will survive as a city. So cities are going to survive due to political and cultural reasons, not due to economic reasons. Is this clear? So remember this much when we are talking about the economy. Now let us move forward to the next aspect where we need to know about the social aspect of Gupta Empire. Is there something changing during Gupta era? When we are talking about social life. Caste system was already present. The number of castes will increase. Caste system was present. Okay. So proliferation in the number of castes. That is one thing which is going to happen. When we talk about society, we talk about Varna system. Okay. When we are talking about the Varnas, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. What had happened here? The condition of Brahmins is going to get better in a comparative sense. It was already good. It is going to become better. How? They are going to be given more land grants. And when they are being given land grants, these land grants are being given in perpetuity. One thing, these land grants are tax-free. They are being given with fiscal, administrative and judicial rights. So more land grants, their economic position is also going to become much more better in comparison to the earlier time. When we are talking about these two categories, this is remaining more or less the same, but condition of Shudras improved comparatively. Okay, improved comparatively is a term which we have to use. How is it improving comparatively? With the expansion of agricultural land, these Shudras were asked to till the land as agriculturalists. So in Shudras, what will happen? There will be one group which will settle as agriculturalists. There will be one group which will keep doing the traditional work that they were accorded. And over centuries, there is going to be a division in the category of Shudra as well. When we'll talk about Chola period, then we'll use two terms, Sata Shudra and Asata Shudra. So how that division is coming into place because of this difference. The ones who will start tilling the land, they'll say we are more pure. Okay, so that will be the claim that they'll start making. So gradually it is going to lead to rigid division. At this point of time, we know that some of them started working as peasants. Okay, so in that way their condition is improving comparatively. They also got some religious rights. What kind of religious rights? Now they can listen to Puranas. Okay, so they can listen to Ramayana and Mahabharata. So that is another way in which their condition improved comparatively, got some economic rights, got some religious rights. Is this clear? The second category that we discuss is of caste or jati. We see a proliferation in the number of castes. Castes already existed. The number of castes that is increasing here. Okay, due to the occupation purpose also, and due to the inclusion of people belonging to different identities into caste system, into Varna system as well. Because when these Brahmins are going to far off lands, many a times those lands were forested lands. People who have anthropology optional or sociology optional, they read this particular topic in a lot of detail. Sanskritization, the process of Sanskritization or detribalization, that is how it is taught. In history, you just need to remember this. So I'm just going to give you a brief about this particular concept. What is happening here? These Brahmins are going to go to far off areas. What they'll do there? They'll contact the tribal chief and they'll tell them, I'm going to give you the status of a Brahmin and you can convert the whole tribe into agriculturalists. And most of the times they'll be given the status of Shudra. Okay, the chief will get the higher status, but the whole tribe will get a lower status according to the Varna system. So when they are being assimilated in this system, various castes are also going to be formed. Is this clear? This is going to leave a huge cultural impact in Hinduism as well. There will be various tribal deities who are going to get assimilated into the fold of Hinduism. Because when these tribals or these far-off societies who were not within the fold of Varna system, when they are getting assimilated in the fold of Varna system, they'll come with their own lifestyles. They'll come with their own cultural tenets. So those things are also going to become the part of Hinduism. And that is how here you will see the nature of this religion became more flexible, more assimilative. That is one change which is coming here in religious arena. Is this clear? So remember this formation of various castes. Caste system existed. Here what is happening? Proliferation in the number of castes. Various subcastes are also being formed. Is this much clear? So remember this. Untouchability. We have talked about the institution of untouchability and how problematic it was. We referred to the account of Fahyan and how he is giving us this detail that these people have to live outside the premises of the villages, and if they have to enter the village premises, they had to announce their entry. So this idea of purity and impurity, that was very rigid and that was very discriminatory. There is this specific term that Fahyan uses to denote these people, that is Chandal. So we should remember this term from prelims perspective. Is this clear? So remember these things. Now if we come to the condition of women, what is happening in their context? When we are talking about the condition of women, there are some comparative improvement, but overall their condition remained miserable. What is the area where improvement happened? Let us talk about that first. Then we are going to talk about the miserable condition. So when we are talking about the category of women, along with the Shudras, they also got the right to listen to the Puranas as well as Ramayana and Mahabharata. So listen to the Puranas and Sanskrit epics. They had gotten that right. So they are acquiring some religious rights during that time. If you look at Vedic culture, you see that men are the ones who were jajamanas. They were the ones who were initiating all the sacrifices. If you look at present day society, you will see women fasting. How are things changing? When Buddhism came, when Jainism came, they started giving rights to women. Women got more attracted towards these religions. Now in Hinduism, you will see a reformist tendency. So they also started giving women more rights. So the right to conduct vrata and upavas, along with listening to scriptures, now they can also do the fasting. The society still remained patriarchal, and if you look at the purpose, it was very much self-defeating in the context that they are fasting for the sons or the husbands. So they are getting some kind of religious rights, but within the fold of patriarchy. Is this clear? So this is one thing that we need to remember here. When we are looking at their social condition from other perspectives, we see an intensification in cases of sati. I am using the term intensification, okay? That means cases of sati increased. And there is this inscriptional mention also in Aaron inscription from Gupta period. So when we are looking at cases of sati, it increased in number, one thing. When we are looking at widow remarriage, it was mostly looked down upon and it was largely not allowed. When we are looking at the condition of widows, it was very pathetic. Okay, so when we are looking at the social condition of women from other perspectives, it remains very problematic. Is this clear? Right to Aaron inscription लिखा है यहाँ. हाँ. I was going to come to this only. Okay. See, when we are talking about the category of women, the category of women is also heterogeneous. It is not a homogeneous category. Now, if you talk about their condition and if you want me to analyze it from ancient times, it is a bit difficult. Why is it difficult? Because we don't have accounts of women in general. That is one problem. Even if we have references, most of the times those references are of upper varna women. But if you look at the memory, because memory is also a way of preserving one's history, and especially of people who did not have the right to get education or who did not have the privilege to get education. So there is this autobiography of a Dalit woman, Kausalya Baisantri. That is the first autobiography of a Dalit woman in Hindi language, and it got published in 1991. So you can understand the condition. We are talking about 1991 and first autobiography of a Dalit woman being published in Hindi language. So Kaushal, when we are talking about her, she is referring to her grandmother, great-grandmother, and she is saying that all of them remarried. Why? Because they were married at a very young age. Now they were married at a very young age, and when husbands were going out to work, some of them died due to a snake bite or due to some other reason. So she is citing that the grandmothers and great-grandmothers, they did remarry. And they had to wear a kind of a bangle to give the identification that they have remarried. So of course there was certain discrimination, but they did remarry. So these kind of sources become our they come to our aid to develop an understanding how women of lower varna or untouchable, how they were functioning. Now we cannot put the same text back to ancient India, but we can develop certain understanding that women belonging to lower varna or vulnerable sections, they probably had more freedom in comparison to women belonging to upper varna. And that can be understood by looking at some of the literary texts. Because if you look at the literary texts, some of them are love stories. And love stories of not women belonging to lower varna or vulnerable sections, but of women who are belonging to upper Varna who are belonging to royal families. Now, all the time they fall in love and they don't know what is happening to them. So there will be a Sakhi or a Dasi. So she is going to tell them कि भाई देखो ये जो हो रहा है इसका ये कारण है. So the Sakhi or the Dasi will tell them that what you are experiencing is love and this is what you should be doing. Okay, so it shows us that these women belonging to lower strata of the society, they had more experience. They are part of the public life and then only they have this understanding of the nitty-gritties of various emotions. Okay, so that can be another way to understand that women belonging to lower strata, they had more mobility, they had more freedom. At the same time, we also need to understand that they were subjected to more exploitation in comparison to upper Varna women, because they'll not only be physically exploited but also sexually exploited, because they are becoming part of the public life and that society was deeply patriarchal. So with more freedom is coming more exploitation and more vulnerability as well. Is this clear? Chalo. Now coming here, that is not important from history perspective, but it can help you in writing essays, because in essay section you will see that every year you will find one essay belonging to gender aspect. So here, if you have a better understanding of the historical development of these things, you will be able to write a nuanced essay. So coming back here, I hope that answered your question. Okay, so what were we discussing earlier? Widow remarriage, not allowed, and the condition of women being miserable. So condition of widows, that was pathetic because they did not have rights. When we are talking about the idea of women and property, whether they were holding any kind of property or not, stridhana. We have talked about stridhana. What is stridhana? कब मिलता है? मैरिज के वक्त. ठीक है. Now that becomes very important. When we are talking about women getting stridhana, a lady would get stridhana only in the case when she is getting married and when she is getting married with the choice of the family. That is also a precondition there. So women had the right to own stridhana, but there is a small star there, conditions attached. हाँ, sad है ना यही चीज. See, I look at it from a different perspective, that we have a right to own a public space. And when we are talking about changes, it is going to be gradual. When we are looking at the problems, they have crept in the society over a period of time. And nothing changes immediately. It might look very goody-goody perspective, but one has to come to terms with it. Otherwise, everything seems gloomy. And that is probably not a very happy way to live. So, yeah, No, dowry and stridhana are not the same. See, when we are talking about a stridhana, जैसे गहने वगैरह नहीं मिलते हैं शादी के वक्त में, वो हो गया स्त्रीधन, या जो पैसे वगैरह देते हैं थोड़े बहुत, वो होता है स्त्रीधन. ठीक है. When we are talking about dowry, dowry is given to the groom's family from the family of the bride. तो शादी के वक्त जो नेगोशिएशन करते थे लोग, या आप डिफरेंट तरीके से करते हैं. सो नहीं, सिमिलर नहीं है. देखिए, जब हम कहते हैं कि राइट किसके पास है, हाँ, वो तरीका बदल गया ना, बिकॉज इट्स इलीगल नाउ. तो अगर ये कह रहे हैं कि किसी एक का प्रॉपर्टी है, प्रॉपर्टी किसी की कब होती है? व्हेन यू हैव द राइट टू डिस्पोज इट ऑफ. That is a very technical thing that we need to remember. One owns a property practically when one has the right to dispose it of. नहीं तो नाम पे तो किसी के भी लिखा लो. तो that is one problem which is there. With changing laws, people have changed their ways as well to deal with the new system. So that is why sensitization, awareness, all these things are important. Chalo, let us not make it a social issues class. Let us go back to history. Okay. So women and property. So women had the right to own stridhana, but here also there was a condition. I hope this is clear. Now, when we are coming to the institutions of marriage, so again, monogamy will be there, polygamy will be there. So these kind of marriages were prevalent in the society. So if we look at it from various other angles, we see that condition of women was miserable during this time as well. Even though they got some religious rights, the social condition remained miserable. Is this clear? Now let us come to the religious aspect. What is happening in religion? So here we see a more assimilative nature of Hinduism. It is giving some rights to Shudras as well as women. It is assimilating people belonging to different identities within the fold of Hinduism. So that is one thing that we need to remember. Nature of religion became more flexible and assimilative. Okay. During this time, we see composition of various Puranas and we see compilation of Sanskrit epics Ramayana and Mahabharata. So composition of various Puranas and compilation of Ramayana and Mahabharata. That is something important which is happening at this point of time. We see some reformist tendency in the religion as well. What kind of reformist tendencies are we referring to? The idea of bhakti. The idea of bhakti, the idea of devotion, that became important. Have you seen the walls of Dashavatar temple? At least in pictures. Go to the NCERT, look at the pictures. In your fine arts NCERT, pictures of Dasavatar temple has been given. So on one of the temple walls, there is this image of Nar and Narayana sitting together. Who is a Nar? Humans. Narayan, God. So here we see Nar and Narayana sitting together and having a conversation. That means emphasis. You found it? Okay. So emphasis on the idea of bhakti as well as on the personal relationship between God and human. They are questioning the role of intermediaries. So there was a problem that had crept in when we were talking about later Vedic religion. Importance of Purohit, importance of Dana, Stuti. Here we see that importance being questioned. What is being said? That you can share a personal relationship with your God. How? By bhakti. So Nara-Narayana relationship, the personal relationship between the devotee and the God. The idea of bhakti. All these things became very important. Is this clear? We see Trideva becoming important. So Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, also known as Shiva. So the idea of Trideva is becoming important at this point of time. We also see worship of Shakti. So Shakti can be worshipped in various forms. She can be worshipped as Durga, she can be worshipped as Kali, Chinmastika, Parvati, various forms can exist. What is the basic idea? Female power. So worship of Shakti. That is also a part of this time's religious development that became important. Is this clear? Apart from this, we see coming up of temples. So we see Nagara style temples being built from Gupta period onwards. So that is another development which we see in architecture. Now this is one segment that we'll discuss separately under architecture section. Okay, so we'll talk about temple architecture style separately in art and culture, and there we'll pick it up from here, Nagara temple style. Is this much clear? So these are the changes which are being witnessed in the religious arena during Gupta period. Now, if we come to the next segment, that is cultural life. What is happening here? What was the language that was prominent? No, other religions are also there. Buddhism is there. If we are talking about here, Jainism will be prominent. I am talking about the changes. In some areas, people will be present, particularly in present-day Kerala and some areas of northwestern frontier provinces, not a lot of population. Again, we don't have census by this time. So, we can't say कि क्या population होगी. 1881 के बाद पता लगेगा. हाँ. Yes, they advised women to worship Krishna. Okay, so again, see, when we look at a text like Mahabharata, if you look at the section of Bhagavad Gita, what is the idea there? Arjun, the relationship of Arjun and Krishna. What is that relationship? Arjun is the Sarathi as well. He is the friend, he is the God, he is the advisor. तो जब जैसी ज़रूरत है तब भगवान उस रूप में है, ठीक है? तो वो आइडिया अगेन वही है, पर्सनल रिलेशनशिप का. तो कृष्ण के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ये बहुत ज़्यादा कॉमन हो जाता है. कृष्ण का रिलेशनशिप विमेन के साथ में जो है कि गोपियों का वो रास लीला वाला जो पूरा आइडिया है, द आइडिया ऑफ द लव ऑफ राधा एंड कृष्ण. सो ऑल दीज थिंग्स विल बिकम पॉपुलर. ओके, हाँ, what will be the important language at this point of time? Sanskrit. Okay, so Sanskrit is going to remain important here as well. There is a change in the context of script. Now, Brahmi has developed into the Nagari script. So, script will be Nagari and language is going to be Sanskrit. Do we find any reference to Prakrit language? Where? How do you know? प्रेडिक्शन मत करिए ना, हिस्ट्री है ये, साहित्य नहीं है. Again, this is your prediction. We are not talking about prediction here. History is based on sources. If we have something which sources are telling us, that we will consider authentic history. बाकी तो सब मनगढ़ंत बातें हैं. Look at the sources. Look at Kalidas. When Kalidas is writing his plays are bilingual. In his plays, men of upper three varnas speak Sanskrit language. Women and Shudras speak Prakrit language. It's a very basic fact which is written even in NCRTs. If you go to the literature section of a Gupta period, that is given there as well. So, when we are talking about language, Sanskrit will be the prominent language. It does not mean that Prakrit did not exist. And we cannot make a prediction here. We know it because the prevalence is in the sources or in the writings of Kalidasa as well. How do we know? Plays are bilingual. It also tells you about the distinguishedness which was present there. When we are talking about men of upper three varna, probably they were learning Sanskrit language. That is why they are the ones who are speaking in Sanskrit language. We are looking at Shudras and the category of women in general speaking the Prakrit language. So that gives us an insight into the linguistic history of Gupta period. Is this clear? So when we are talking about culture, we talk about first language and script. We understood the presence of languages and script too. Now let us come to the segment of literature. When we are talking about literature, there will be religious literature. So when we are talking about religious literature, Puranas are being composed, Ramayana and Mahabharata are being compiled. That is one thing we need to remember. Now, when we are coming to foreign accounts, in foreign accounts we have Fahian's account, which we have already discussed. Now, when we come to non-religious texts, what are the non-religious texts present at this point of time? Who are the prominent literary scholars? Kalidas. What are the writings of Kalidas? Well, see, before going to the writings, remember this, that Kalidasa's plays are bilingual. male of upper three varna speaking Sanskrit, women and the category of Shudra speaking Prakrit language. Do we find the instances of women being educated at this point of time? What is our reference point? Kya? I'm saying what is our reference point? कुछ बताना पड़ेगा ना कि इसके बेसिस पे ये बात कह रहे हैं. अरे भाई, literary sources, no, do you know a reference? I am asking that. See, when we talk about Abhigyana Shakuntalam, it's a very popular text. That is why I am giving this example. When we look at Abhigyana Shakuntalam, when Shakuntala is in love, she is writing a letter to Dushyant. And she is that is what I am saying. They are writing letters, but in Prakrit language. So we know that even when they are educated, the medium of language was probably different. Okay, because that is what our sources are telling us. हो सकता है संस्कृत भी आती हो, मगर लिखा नहीं है ये चीज. जो लेटर लिख रही है वो प्राकृत में लिख रही है. Is this clear? So there are instances of women getting education as well, very few of them. It is not a norm, but probably the medium, the subject matter was different from that of men. Okay, remember this. Now let us come to Kalidas. When we are talking about Kalidas, which one are the important texts of Kalidas? Do you remember any? अभिज्ञान, एक एक करके. अभिज्ञान शाकुंतलम. क्या है अभिज्ञान शाकुंतलम में? There is the sage's daughter, Shakuntala. What I want you to understand, that there are some dramas, there are some plays which are based on love stories. There are going to be the ones which will be based on historical development. For example, they'll take instances from their past and they'll write a particular drama or a particular play referring to that incident. They are going to take inspiration from religious literature and they are going to write certain plays. So subject matter can differ from one another. It can be historical, it can be religious, it can be based on a particular emotion. Okay, so when we are talking about Kalidas, one very prominent play that he wrote is Abhigyana Shakuntalam. Raghuvansham. रघुवंशम क्या है? What will be the subject matter? किस कैटेगरी में फॉल करेगा? ये पोएट्री ही लिख रहे हैं, it will be religious. The story of the kul or family of Raghu. Okay, that is the kul to which Ram belonged. So it is, the subject matter is going to be religious. It's very interesting. If you look at exploits of Raghu, Raghu is also going on Digvijay. And when you look at the details, there is probably 5th sarga. In the 5th sarga, the Digvijay is mentioned. And in that sarga, when you look at the Digvijay of Raghu, ऐसे करके है दिग्विजय. काली जो हरिसेन ने दिग्विजय का मेंशन किया है समुद्रगुप्त के, the areas are the same, the direction is different. तो जब लिख भी रहे हैं, even if the subject matter is religious, they are probably taking some inspiration from the historical development and that is also giving them an inspiration. Okay, so that is a similarity that you can trace between Raghu's Digvijay and Samudragupta's Digvijay. Is this clear? So Raghu, Vansham. What else are Kalidas's writings? मेघदूतम. मेघदूतम में क्या है? पोएम्स तो सब में है. So it is a love story, but it is very interesting that Megha is the Doot. So there are two lovers who are separated due to the Yaksha being sent to exile. अब उनके पास में WhatsApp नहीं था, ईमेल नहीं था, फोन कॉल्स नहीं कर सकते थे, तो क्या करेंगे वो? मेघ से बोल रहे हैं तुम हमारा संदेश लेकर के जाओ, क्योंकि मेघ तो एक जगह से दूसरे जगह जा सकता है, या कबूतर भेजते होंगे। तो जो कालिदास का इमेजिनेशन है, दैट इज ऑफ मेकिंग मेघ क्लाउड दी दूत। हाँ, मेघ क्लाउड होता है ना, तो क्लाउड एक जगह से दूसरे जगह जा रहा है, तो उससे संदेशा भेज रहे हैं। तो इस तरीके का भी हमको सब्जेक्ट मैटर दिखाई देता है, वेरी फैसिनेटिंग if you read it. Okay, so Meghadutam is another writing. What else? Malavika Agni Mitra, that is another text. What is the subject matter of Malavika Agni Mitra? It is the love story of Agnimitra and Malavika. Agnimitra is whose son? Pushyamitra Shunga. Again, taking inspiration from a historical character and writing a play on that. Do you know of any other name? Kumara Sambhav. So again, subject matter is religious. The union of Shiva and Parvati and how Kumar was born. That is the subject matter here. So we need to keep in mind these texts, what are the important subject matters. Because when it comes to Kalidas, UPSC focuses upon subject matter as well. So you can't skip that. You need to know at least the basics of these subject matters. वो आपको ये नहीं पूछ रहे हैं कि इसका पूरा डिटेल में कहानी क्या है. But you should know what is the basic subject matter. Is this clear? Now, have you heard of Mrichakatikam? Mrichakatikam is another text by Shudraka that is composed during this period. So it is again a love story of a man with a Ganika. That is the love story, and how the Ganika wants to be a mother. She wants to feel like a mother. So when she is meeting the son of that merchant, he is a merchant. When he is meeting this son, when she is meeting this son, she is trying to give him a lot of toys so that the child will be talking to her. So it is a very detailed play. One of the themes is this. Okay, you should remember Vishakadatta. What is the composition of Vishakadatta? Mudra Rakshas. What is the subject matter? When Mauryans are establishing their empire by overthrowing the Nandas, what is the whole conspiracy that was going on there? And they tried to woo the minister of Nanda, whose name was Rakshas. Okay, so that is the subject matter. Again, taking inspiration from history and composing a play. There is another text attributed to Vishakhadatta which has not been found in totality, Devi Chandraguptam. Again, a historical text, a historical subject matter. Okay, so conflict between Shakas and Guptas, that is the basic subject matter. Is this clear? So remember these people when we are talking about important literary scholars. Amar Singh, who composed Amar Kosh. So a text related to Sanskrit grammar, a text which is also functioning as a lexicon. Is this clear? So remember the name of Amar Kosh. Have you heard of Panchatantra? So Panchatantra is also a text being attributed to Gupta period. Who is the composer? Vishnu Sharma. Okay, so you should remember his name as well. So when we are talking about literary tradition, there are a variety of literary texts which were being composed at this point of time, belonging to the category of literary text, belonging to the category of religious texts, non-religious texts, foreign accounts. When we are looking at non-religious texts, there also you will find the subject matter based on various emotions. You will find the subject matter to be historical. You will find the subject matter to be of religious importance. So all these things are part of Gupta period literary tradition. So did you notice any difference when we are talking about this time period? So a lot of literary pieces are being composed. So if you look at Gupta period, in cultural sense, it can be regarded as a golden age. This is a terminology which has been ascribed to Gupta age. But when we are looking at the social aspect, it is very problematic. When we look at the cultural aspect, we see a huge development in that particular area. Is this clear? Now, if you look at other category of texts, for example, texts belonging to sciences or mathematics, there also we find a development. What is the example? Arya Bhatta. What is the name of the text? Arya Bhattiya. Is there any other text that we know about? Surya, Siddhanta Varaha, Mihir. What else? Vaga, Bhatta, Ashtanga, Samagra. That is another text that you can remember. So during this time, we find texts on mathematics, we find texts on astronomy, we find texts being composed on medical treatises. All these things are present during this time. So category of literary tradition and at the same time literature based on scientific tradition. When we talk about this person called Shushrut, who composed Shushrut Samhita, there is a debate on his time period, but most of the scholars accord the time period to Gupta period. So we can remember Shushrut as well, Shushrut Samhita. Is this clear? Most of these texts have been composed in Sanskrit language. When we are talking about Kalidas, his plays are bilingual. That is the difference that you need to remember. This is the category of literature. What else do we study in culture? That we study in economy. Sculptures, we study, again, that we cover under the category of craft production. That has already been discussed. Okay. Now coming here, when we are talking about art and sculpture making. So during this time, you find sculptures made of stone as well as of bronze. What can be our examples? So there are various sculptures of Buddha as well as Vishnu. A lot of images of Vishnu you will see being made during this time. So when we talk about the category of stone, you find images of Vishnu, you find images of Buddha, you find images of Ganga and Yamuna. So deification of rivers, that is also something that is visible during this time. So we find a variety of sculptures being sculpted of stone. When we talk about sculptures sculpted of bronze, one very prominent example becomes of Sultanganj Buddha. Sultanganj is a place in present-day Bihar, and from there we find a huge sculpture of Buddha. That is a very unique sculpture. That is why I am referring to the particular area. Okay. When we are talking about these images, they have been found all over eastern India. So in the regions of present day, let's say Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, you are going to find these images. Is this clear? So when we are talking about sculpture making, we find sculptures made of stone as well as bronze. Okay. In bronze, we should remember the example of Sultanganj Buddha. Is this clear? Now, if we talk about technological development during this time, you can give the reference of iron pillar. One, you can give the example of iron pillar, and second, you can talk about the technology being used in coin minting. That is another important area that you can emphasize upon, because when we are looking at the coins, portrait of kings, deities, all of those things have been crafted on the obverse and the reverse of the coin. So that is also telling us about the technological development during this period. Is this clear? Now, if we talk about the painting tradition, what can be our examples? Do you remember any? Have you heard of Ajanta? तो अजंता में पेंटिंग है, अजंता में हमारा वॉल पेंटिंग है, दैट बिकम्स अ वेरी प्रोमिनेंट एग्जाम्पल. टू बी प्रिसाइज, व्हाट एग्जाम्पल कैन वी गिव? द पेंटिंग ऑफ पदम पाणि. पदम पाणि वॉज अ बोधिसत्व. हु इज अ बोधिसत्व? Yes, so Bodhisattva is a person who has the capability to achieve nirvana, but he is kind enough to hold his nirvana to help others reach that stage. It's a very important concept in Mahayana Buddhism. And one of the bodhisattvas is Padam Pani. Padam Pani, the one who is holding the lotus. अगर आपने NCERT में फोटो भी दियो तो ऐसे करके एक लोटस को होल्ड किया हुआ फोटो है. That is of Bodhisattva Padam Pani, and it's a very famous painting. That is why I'm asking you to remember the name. We also find a painting of Mahabhinishkramad. What is Mahabhinishkramad? Departure of Buddha. देखिए टर्म्स इसलिए बोल रहे हैं, आपको मुश्किल लग सकता है याद रखने में कि क्या बोल रहे हैं ये, बट यूपीएससी इज आस्किंग दीज टर्म्स, सो वी नीड टू बी प्रिपेयर्ड. महाभिनिष्क्रमण का घटना क्या है कि व्हेन बुद्ध लेफ्ट हिज होम इन द मिडिल ऑफ द नाइट, दैट डिपार्चर, बुद्ध's departure is known as the event of Mahabhinishkraman. Okay, so this event has also been depicted in the caves of Ajanta. Is this clear? There is another site which you can remember of Bagh. Where is it located? Bagh Caves, present-day Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so why this particular cave becomes important for us? Because here we find representation of non-religious subjects. So things of daily lives, events of daily lives, that has been depicted here. And that particular cave is known as Ranga Mahal. Is this clear? So these two examples, remember, when we are talking about cave art and when we are talking about paintings. Then there will be this cave of Udaygiri. See, there are two different caves. Udaygiri, Khandagiri from Odisha. When I say Udaygiri only, I mean Madhya Pradesh. So in Udaygiri, we find some of the caves which were built by Gupta rulers. Now, why those caves are important? Because there are depictions of incarnation of Vishnu there. So when we are talking about Vishnu, Vishnu became a very important deity during this period. And we know that Vishnu was incarnated for a lot of times. So when we are talking about important incarnations which were depicted, one of them is Bhaman avatar and another one of them is Varaha avatar. So these two stories are very popular when we are talking about the sculptural tradition of ancient India. And these avatars, these incarnations have been depicted in the format of a sculpture in the Udaygiri cave. So remember this as well, that we find depiction of various deities on the temple walls as well as on the cave walls. Is this clear? So this will be our example of cave art in the form of sculpture, in the form of paintings. Okay. What about architecture? Nagar. Okay. Nagar. So when we are talking about architecture, in the realm of architecture, we will see development of Nagar style of temple making under the patronage of Guptas. And we are going to have various examples. Parvati temple, Dashavatar temple, they are going to be important temples. We will talk about the development of this particular style when we will discuss temple architecture. But here remember that it is starting during the period of Guptas. Is this clear? So remember this. Do we find some other kind of architecture being built during this time with respect to Buddhism? That is the sculpture. Dhamek Stup in Sarnath, that is being built during this time. When we are talking about Bodh Mahavihar, that was being built during this time in Bodh Gaya. When we talk about Nalanda University, a prominent center of education, this was established during Gupta period. So those can be our different examples of architecture as well. That when we are talking about architecture too, we see centers of education being built, we see Buddhist architecture being developed, we see Hindu temple architecture developing as well. I hope this much is clear. So we have devoted a lot of time to Guptas. I hope you will be able to solve the questions in prelims. Okay, we'll look at the PYQs as well, but keep revising these details and polish your preparation according to the trend. Okay. Now we have to discuss the post-Gupta phase. So we will discuss, what is the time? Okay, we have time before the break because, see, there are some things which should be understood in continuity. So when we are talking about a particular time period, there is an essence of that time period. So we should know that before proceeding to the factual details. Okay. Now understand one thing. Do you know about the institution of feudalism? What is feudalism? Decentralization of what? Power. Decentralization of power. What else? Okay, so I'll explain this to you first, then we'll move to post-Gupta period. See, when we are talking about the institution of feudalism, it was a European concept. Okay, it was a European concept which was used to explain a particular phenomenon in Indian context as well, and it was used by various other Asian countries as well. Okay, so when we are talking about feudalism, it is an institution which has both political as well as economic aspects. So if we look at the political aspect as pointed out by you two, when we are talking about the political aspect, it is about decentralization of power. Let me explain it a bit to you. Let's say there is a ruler at the center. Now, if they are not very strong, what they will do eventually, political and economic concept should be understood together. So when we are talking about a particular time, when ruler sitting at the center is not very strong and long distance trade has declined gradually. So if long distance trade declines gradually, the value of coin is also going to decrease. Okay, that will be one problem, because if you look at gold coins, primarily they were used to do long distance trade. Okay, now what is happening? Roman Empire has declined. When Roman Empire has declined, and if we were prominently conducting our long distance trade with Roman Empire, our long distance trade is also going to decline. So long distance trade declined. It will put an emphasis upon the importance of agricultural land. Okay, for any ruler, what will become important is agriculture. Feudalism is like the king won't maintain the army, and the army would be maintained by the feudal lords, and they would have the power to collect the revenue. Yes, Satyajit, this is one aspect that we are discussing here. Okay, so what has happened? The ruler is weak. At the same time, the economy is ruralized. Okay, how? Decline of long distance trade. Is this much clear? Now, if I am the ruler and I have to pay my officials, I'll pay them in land. I'll pay them in land by giving them land grants. So I'll tell them that you have to collect revenue from this land and you have to maintain a portion of army. Whatever revenue you have collected, a portion of it you can keep at your salary, a portion of it will be spent on army, and a portion of it should be sent to the king. The feudal lord should remain loyal to the ruler. That is the precondition here. Will that be applied in all the cases? No. But this is the precondition here, that if I am giving you a land grant, you will be loyal to me. That was the idea. Now this person used to, इसने क्या किया? He further divided the land and provided it to subordinates. Okay. So when we are looking at the political power, it is decentralized and there are various centers of power. There is not one single center of power, there are various centers of power. So our key term would be decentralization of power, weakening of the central power. Is this clear? A huge part of the army was being maintained by the feudal lords. Now think about this situation and think about a particular event where the ruler is attacked. Now the ruler does not have an army of his own. He'll ask the feudal lords to help him out. What if they don't help? Even if they help the ruler, the chain of command will be various. There is not a single chain of command. So weak leadership will also be there. And that will become a reason why when various attacks were happening, rulers were not able to defend themselves in a very effective manner. Is this clear? So this is one aspect that we need to keep in mind. When we are talking about the second aspect, that is economic, here we need to understand ruralization of the economy. That means agriculture will become important. Decline of long distance trade. You must have read this in your tripartite struggle, that there are 3 dynasties fighting for the control of Kannauj. Why were they fighting for the control of Kannauj for more than 200 years? Kannauj will become important due to the emphasis on agriculture. The most fertile area is Doab. Everybody would want to have the control of Doab. And Kannauj is more or less in the center of Doab. At the same time, it is slightly situated on a higher platform. Okay, so it will serve as the best area for a political power to make its center. क्योंकि ये बात हमने की है पहले भी, we have already talked about it, that when we are talking about political power or religious power, they make their centers on a slightly upward platform. Okay, clear है? And in the middle of the Doab, so they'll be able to control this area as well and this area too in an effective manner. That is why Kannauj will suddenly become important. Nobody is talking about Kannauj in the earlier period. Now Kannauj has become important. Then after a point of time, Delhi will become important, even when it had a perpetual water crisis. Okay, so why this will become important? Foreign attacks. तो भाई कन्नौज में बैठ के इंतजार थोड़ी करेंगे कि आधा तो आप जीत लिया तब लड़ने जाएं. So you need to defend your area before they enter Doab. तो दिल्ली क्या है? It was deeply forested, mountainous, Aravalli range. तो उसके वजह से ruler, it will be a safe area for making it a political center. So even though it had a perpetual water crisis, rulers are going to settle here. And you will see making of various lakes, for example, Anang Lake. You will see making of Hauj Khas. You will see Bawlis being constructed. So various Bawlis are going to be constructed, even though it had the problem of water crisis, it is going to become a very important power center. So it's important to understand the changing milieu of a particular time period. It is important to understand the basic essence of a time period. You will be able to answer a lot of questions with logic. Is this clear? So this is one thing which was happening, which also led to the rise of Kannauj as an important political center. Is this clear? At the same time, you will also see one other thing happening. If we look at it from the perspective of the center, decentralization has happened. If we look at it from the perspective of the bottom, what is happening here? They'll fight together, they'll make diplomatic relations with each other, and eventually, since they have a control of army as well, they are going to make a lot of regional dynasties. So now you won't find a single central power during the early medieval period. You find various centers of power. Why so many smaller dynasties? Because of the integration process which was happening at the bottom. Is this clear? So from the perspective of the center, it is decentralization of power. From the perspective of the bottom, it is going to be integration process and coming up of various regional dynasties. I hope you understood it. So from this particular period, from 7th century onwards, we should say, till 12th century CE, this is something which is going to remain very common throughout the subcontinent. Is this much clear? कुछ पूछना है यहाँ तक? So we can take a break and then we can start the post-Gupta era. Okay, so we had understood the important changes that were witnessed during post-Gupta period. And from this time onwards, we are going to see the traits of feudalism being present in the socio-economic milieu. I hope this much is clear. When I say traces of feudalism in socio-economic or political and economic milieu, what do we mean by that? Traces of feudalism. What do we mean by feudalism? What are the terms that we need to remember? Okay, so in political sense, we understand decentralization of power, and gradually in various areas, regional powers are going to emerge. When we are talking about it in economic sense, we need to understand ruralization of economy and decline of long distance trade. So that is the key term that you need to remember. Now let us discuss the period of 7th century onwards. When we talk about 7th century, who are the political powers who are ruling in Indian subcontinent? Prominent powers. Harsh in North India. Who is ruling in Deccan? चालुक्याज. सिलेबस ध्यान में रखना है. Chalukyas. Okay, Vakatakas will decline and Chalukyas will come. Okay, when we are going to deep south, then who will come? Here, Pallav will become important. These three are going to be contemporaries of each other. After their decline, we see Palas coming here. We see Pratiharas becoming important in this region, present-day Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, Gujarat region, and in Deccan, Rashtrakutas will become important. Okay? During this time, we need to understand Harsh, Chalukya, and Pallav. They are going to be contemporaries. Which dynasty did Harshvardhan belong to? Vardhan. Vardhan or Pushya Bhuti. Pushya Bhuti is also one name which has been used to denote Vardhan dynasty. When we are talking about Harsha, his father was Prabhakar Vardhan, who had become an important ruler and started using the title of Maharaja Dharaj. Again, UPSC does not ask questions on these personalities. You should know about the important cultural development. Okay. You should know about the important literary scholars if there are any. Okay. That is something that you should know about. Now, when we are talking about the period of Harsha, so Prabhakar Vardhan was there, then he is going to have 2 sons and a daughter. Harsha will become the important son, and that becomes a reason why when we study Vardhan age, we study it as the age of Harsha as well. Why? Because Harsha was the only prominent ruler here. When we are talking about Harsha, the capital city will be Kannauj. Kannauj had become important at this point of time. They were earlier ruling from Thanesar, now known as Sthaneshwar, in present-day Haryana. But then the center of power under them will become Kannauj. I have already explained you the importance of Kannauj. I hope you remember it. Okay. Now, when we are talking about Harsha, he is going to try to do expansion of his political influence. So he is going to win over the areas of North India. When he will try to go to Deccan, there was one ruler, Pulakeshin II, who stopped him. So Harsh won over major parts of North India, but was defeated by Pulakeshin II. That is one information that we need to know. Why am I saying this? Pulakeshin and Harsha are contemporary. If you know this information, you can talk about that. Is this clear? So if Harsha wants to expand the territory, Harsha will go to the territories of Chalukyas. If Pallavas want to do the expansion, where will they go? To the territory of Chalukyas. So Chalukyas are going to fight with both Harsha as well as Pallav. Is this clear? This is going to be the political milieu of this time period. Here Mahendravarman and then Narasimhavarman first. These 2 rulers are going to be present. When Fahyan came to Indian subcontinent, he wrote about Harsha. He wrote Wensang, not Fahyan. When Wensang is coming here, he wrote about Harsha. He wrote about Pulakeshin II. He wrote about Narasimhavarman first. Is this clear? So I told you that there was a basic difference between the writings of Fahyan and Wensang. When we are talking about Fahyan, he was not interested in the political details. When we are talking about Wensang, he was very much interested in the political milieu of subcontinent as well. So he is traveling to all these areas, he is meeting these rulers, he is also recording details of their administration and the details regarding the wars they have fought. Is this clear? So remember this basic difference. If UPSC gives you a question that Wensang mentions the Chalukyan, Pallav rulers as well. So you should not be confused, because there is this basic presumption that when we are talking about Wensang, he came to the court of Harsha. And often we think, what has he got to do with Chalukyas and Pallavas? These people were contemporary. क्योंकि generally जब हम पढ़ते हैं तो हम पढ़ते हैं एक topic age of Harsha and the second topic is Chalukya and Pallav. We often establish connection between these two, but we leave out Harsha. That is a problem. I hope this much is clear. So they are, Chalukyas are going to fight with both Pallavas as well as Harsha. Yes, he is a Chalukyan ruler. So he had defeated Harsha and he had defeated Mahendravarman of Pallava dynasty as well. And eventually Narasimhavarman first defeated and killed Pulkeshin second. Is this clear? So these are the 4 names that you should keep in mind. I hope this is clear. And I am asking you to keep these names in mind because they are of cultural importance. That is the only reason, because UPSC is interested in cultural details. Okay, so let us move forward. We have understood the political milieu. We have understood who is fighting with whom. Now let us move to the important things that we should remember. When we will talk about, let's say, the administration of Harsha, what kind of administration would it be? Feudal traits are going to be present. So Harsha is going to pay his officials mostly in land grants. Okay, so mostly in land grants, they'll also be asked to maintain a troop for themselves, which they can also use, and they'll have to help the king out as well. Is this clear? So feudal traits in administration. Here also we see rulers taking these kind of titles of Maharaja Dhiraj. Prabhakar Vardhan himself took it. Is this much clear? So this is something you can remember. Their administration mein, there are feudal traits. Army is maintained by the officials as well. So decentralization of power is gradually happening. When we are talking about economy, ruralization of economy. That is one fact that we need to remember. Here, decline in long distance trade. So again, whenever now we are going to use the term feudalism, you should keep these 4 factors in mind. You can also, 5 factors. You can add the army as well. So you should keep these things in mind. So ruralization of economy, and we see that there is a decline in long distance trade. Various land grants are also being given, both to the religious people as well as to the officials, because now land grants are also being given as the salary of that particular official. Is this clear? When we come to society, has something changed in society? More or less things are the same. Because see, when we witness a change, it takes some time. After 3-4 centuries, we'll talk about a particular change. Okay, but for now, things are remaining more or less the same. Harsh is somebody who saved his sister from committing sati. That does not mean that women in general were not practicing sati. Women in general were practicing sati, but when we are talking about acts of individuals, there you can find exceptions as well. You can find people who are trying to prohibit women in their lives to commit sati. Is this clear? So remember this is an exception where Harsha himself is taking an initiative of stopping his sister from committing sati. Okay. When we are talking about religion, what is happening in religious milieu? More or less people are following Vaishnavism at large scale. Harsha himself converted to Buddhism. So he is giving patronage to Buddhism as well. This is one thing that we need to remember. Now, if we come to the culture part, what is happening in culture? So in culture, we need to remember a few names. Here, if we talk about Harsha, Harsha has himself composed a few plays. Which ones has he composed? Nagananda, which else? So 3 plays have been attributed to him: Ratnavali, Priyadarshika and Naganand. These 3 plays have been attributed to Harsha, Sanskrit language. So again, language is going to be Sanskrit. When we are talking about Banabhatta, Banabhatta was his court poet. So what is Banabhatta composing? Why is he important for us? Harsha Charit. Has he composed any other text apart from Harsha Charit? Kadambari. Okay, so you should remember Kadambari as well. So Harsha Charit and Kadambari. There is a Bans Kheda inscription present day Uttar Pradesh, which is attributed to Harsha's reign, which is mentioning about Harsha. So that is another thing that you can remember. Now, if we talk about foreign travelers, we should remember the name of Wensang. The text that he composed here is Suyuki. Fukuki, Fayan. Suyuki is Wensang. Okay. What is he writing about? Huh? So he will write about Buddhism. He is a Buddhist monk who has come here. I didn't understand. Western. Okay, I didn't understand. Western record का मतलब क्या हुआ? Might have confused something else with it. Dialect में आता है कि Western dialect है कि Eastern dialect है. वो वहाँ dialect में बात करते हैं. See, when we are talking about Wensang, one very prominent thing that you need to remember is he is a Buddhist monk, but he is also very much interested in the political milieu of Indian subcontinent. So he is writing about the reign of Harsha. He is writing about Chalukyas as well as Pallavas. He is going to the court of various rulers and recording his experiences in that context as well. When we talk about Harsha, Harsha is a king who adapted Buddhism. So he is going to facilitate Wensang at a very different scale. So what Harsha is going to do? He is going to conduct a convention and he is going to ask Wensang to speak there about which subject? Buddhism, importance of Buddhism. So Harsha organized various assemblies as well and he invited Wensang to deliver a speech on the importance of Buddhism in those assemblies. A very prominent assembly was held at Kannauj. Okay, that is one thing that you can remember. When we are talking about other aspects of Wensang's account, what else is he writing? He is writing about the economic life during this particular period. So he is writing that economy is ruralized, long distance trade is declining, there is a decline in various cities, but some of the cities are still flourishing. So he is giving the example of Prayag, he is giving the example of Nalanda, he is giving the example of Kannauj, he is giving the example of Kanchi, that these are the cities which are still flourishing. What we need to notice here, these cities are either important political centers or important cultural centers. Okay? So cities which were solely based on long distance trade, they are in decline. So when it comes to economic aspect, he is writing about that. When it comes to social aspect, he is writing the social details that we have discussed. When we are talking about law and order, he is saying that I was robbed twice. So this is a problem which was present. Think about it, a Buddhist monk who is traveling from so far off land. क्या लेके आया होगा? बहुत कुछ तो लेके travel कर नहीं रहा होगा. Still he was robbed and not once, twice. So we can understand that the situation of law and order had probably deteriorated at this point of time. When we are talking about religion, so in religion, Vaishnavism is prominent, Shaivism existed, and Buddhism existed as well. We find a particular king named Harsha, who is not only converting to Buddhism, but is also patronizing Buddhism. Is this much clear? When we look at the writings of Wensang, he says that Buddhism is flourishing at this point of time. See, when it comes to religion, whenever we are studying any particular person, we need to keep an account of their identity and their motive. If a person has traveled so far to collect Buddhist manuscripts, the person will be biased when it comes to Buddhism. So in other aspects, his accounts might reflect the prevailing realities. But when it comes to this religious aspect, we need to take it with a pinch of salt. So when he is saying that it is flourishing a lot, it was existing, but not flourishing in the way Wensang is describing. Vaishnavism had become more prominent amongst people by this time, as we know by other contemporary accounts. Is this clear? So remember this. When we talk about Wensang, he is saying that there are 18 branches of Buddhism which are present in India at this point of time, but Mahayana Buddhism is flourishing. So when we look at the accounts of Wensang, we get to know that there were various divisions within Buddhism, and that is something which is historically right. And we will also see, when we will discuss Buddhism, that Mahayana was the one which flourished the most. Is this much clear? So we need to remember these things when we are talking about the reign of Harsha. I hope these things are clear. What you should remember from examination perspective? Literature. Okay, and some of the basic details that we have just completed, so that if there is a question based on these aspects, you can answer that. Okay. Now let us move forward to the Chalukyas. Where are they ruling from? A person who was following Buddhism. Our identity is not only religious, that is one aspect of our lives. Okay? He is a king who converted to Buddhism. He was also a king, a political figure as well, who had a particular religious affiliation. Chale. Let us talk about Chalukyas. If you look at Chalukyas, you will hardly find any questions. From mains perspective, every topic is important wherever you find some cultural contribution, because UPSC has been asking questions on that. Here, if we are talking about Chalukyas, we should keep cognizance of some of the important sites. So let us discuss what is happening during this particular time period and what we should remember from our examination perspective. When we are talking about Chalukyas, we know that they are engaged in political rivalry with both Harsha as well as Pallavas. The prominent name in this context will become of Pulakeshin II. Pulakeshin II was able to defeat Harsha. He was able to defeat Mahendravarman of Pallav dynasty as well. Later, he was defeated and killed by Narasimhavarman I of Pallava dynasty. Is this clear? How do we know about his political achievements? Ayahole inscription. Okay, so we get to know about his exploits from Ayahole inscription. Okay, is this clear? When we are saying Ayahole, that means it is located in Ayahole. Okay, so there was this Durga temple. On those walls, Ayahole inscription was inscribed. When we are talking about the capital, Vatapi, or popularly known as Badami. So that is going to be another important site. Which state are we talking about? Present day Karnataka. Okay. So when we are talking about Pulakeshin II, his achievements are recorded in Ayahole inscription. Who composed it? Ravi Kirti. Ravi Kirti is the person who has composed it, and he is talking about the achievements of Pulacation. Second, he is giving he is talking about his aspiration as well. He is saying that I want to write like Kalidas. I want to write like Hari Sen. So we need to keep this thing in mind that when we are talking about ancient India or medieval India, knowledge tradition was not limited to a particular geographical terrain. People were traveling from one area to another, and transfer of knowledge was happening as well. So they are not clicking pictures and sending each other those pictures on WhatsApp कि भाई देखो यहाँ मैंने ये inscription देखा, ये लिखा हुआ है. But they are aware of the knowledge tradition which existed in Eastern India or which existed in Southern India. Is this clear? And they are also aware of the importance of those texts, most likely. Then only he has the aspiration to write like Kalidas or Hari Sen. So this is another thing that we notice here in this context. So yes, yes. So आप खोए रहते हैं क्या क्लास में? कर्नाटक वाले साइड में रूल कर रहे हैं और बादामी इनका कैपिटल है. ठीक है, 5 मिनट पहले यही बात कही थी हमने, इफ आई रिमेंबर करेक्टली. चलिए अब आते हैं आगे के एस्पेक्ट पे. सो व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट पुलिकेशन, व्हाट बिकम्स इंपॉर्टेंट? आई होल inscription. This is something that we need to keep in mind. Is this clear? We already know about the political conflict that Chalukyas are having with both Harsha as well as Pallavas. Okay. Now, if we have to talk about administration and economy, feudal administration, we already know what do we mean by that. When we are talking about religion, Shaivism was more prominent in Deccan region. Okay, Shaivism was more prominent, but Vaishnavism was also present. It will not be very prominent, but it will be present. Is this clear? See, one thing you should remember by logic, whenever we are talking about the state of present day Karnataka, Jainism will be present. Even if it will be present to a smaller extent, it will be present, which is a very important site which we have already discussed. Shravanabel Gol. So Shravanabel Gol is going to remain important for Jain people throughout these centuries. Okay, that is why presence of Jainism in this region will be there. Okay. Now, let us move to the cultural achievements of these people. When we are talking about Chalukyas, most important thing here to remember is the temple architecture style. What they are developing is Vesara temple architecture style. Okay. What are the important sites in that context, apart from Badami and Ayahole? These two sites I have already told you. Pattadakkal. Pattadakkal is another important site. Now here when we are looking at temple architecture, we need to keep this in mind that there are going to be cave temples as well as structural temples. When we were discussing Guptas, there also I told you Udaygiri caves. So cave temples were present, and at the same time we also get to see the structural temples in the context of Dashavatar temple and Parvati temple. So when people started experimenting with temple architecture, they'll start with cave architecture. Then gradually they'll develop a particular style and they'll move towards the structural temples. So here we see cave temples as well as structural temples in Badami. Is this clear? Here when we are looking at the religious affiliation, 4 caves are present. The first was Shiva cave, second was Harihara cave. Hari, that means Vishnu. Hara, that means Shiva. So we find the concept of Harihara as well. So second was dedicated to Hari, Hara, third again Shiv, and fourth is going to be the Jain cave. Okay, so we see prominence of Shaivism, presence of Vaishnavism as well as Jainism. We don't find references to Buddhism at this point of time. You will see gradually Buddhism will disappear from the land of its own birth. It will survive and it will flourish outside the Indian subcontinent, but it will disappear more or less from the land of its own origin. Is this clear? So very less population in Indian subcontinent is going to follow Buddhism in comparison to the ancient times. If you look at ancient times, Buddhism had become a very popular, very prominent religion. So in that comparison, you will not find a sizable population now. Is this clear? Now let us come to the Ayahole temple. So in Ayahole, Durga temple will become important. Why? Because of the importance of the Ayahole inscription. When we are talking about Pattadakkal, so here you will find a lot of temples. The prominent ones are going to be Papnath temple, Virupaksha temple. Now you shouldn't be confused when if you find the name Virupaksha temple in your prelims examination. There are various Virupaksha temples. Two of them are very famous. One Virupaksha temple of Pattadakkal and second Virupaksha temple of Hampi. Is this clear? We'll talk about these temples when we'll come to temple architecture style. So these are the names that you should remember. These are the temple architectures that you should remember, and the Ayahole inscription of Ravi Kirti, which was dedicated to Pulakeshin II. That is something that we should keep in mind. I hope this is clear. Now let us come to the next dynasty, which is Pallav. Again, a contemporary of Vardhans as well as Chalukyas. When we look at Pallavas, earlier questions on Pallav period, you will not find in mains, but this year one question was asked on the cultural contribution of Pallavas. Okay, in prelims again we need to keep that in mind. Important places, important architecture, important literature. That is something that we need to keep in mind. I hope this is clear. The plan is clear. Okay. Now when we are talking about Pallavas, Kanchi or Kanchipuram, that will become the capital and that will become important. Okay. When we are talking about Pallavas, see, whenever there are various capitals, we don't need to mug them up. Why? Because there have been various dynasties where you will find multiple political centers. So there we don't have to bother ourselves with that information. Jahan ek hi hai throughout the dynasty. That is one dynasty where we should remember the name. Is this clear? So Kanchi will be one important center, and after that Mamallapuram or Mahabalipuram, as we know it today, that will become another important center. When we are talking about rulers here, two important rulers are present in cultural context, Mahendra Varman and Narasimha Varman first. Okay. When we are talking about Mahendra Varman was defeated and killed by Pulakeshin II. And Narasimha Varman first is defeating and killing Pulakeshin II. Okay. So this is the political rivalry which existed. Pulakeshin defeating and killing Mahendra Varman. His successor Narasimha Varman will defeat and kill Pulakeshin II. Okay. Is this clear? So this is what happened. Now when we are talking about these rulers, what are going to be their cultural contributions? So here you will find a particular text, Matta Vilas Prahasan, that is attributed to Mahendra Varman. He is also called Chitrakar Puli. Chitrakar Puli, that means painter, one who painted really well. Chaitya Kari, one who built a lot of temples. So if you look at the terms here, you will find an assimilative tendency as well. He is building temples, and the term that is being used is Chaitya Kari. Chaitya is a term which is used in Buddhism, and he is being called Chaitya Kari. Is this clear? He is also called Vichitra Chitta. कोई ऐसा इंसान जिसका चित्त विचित्र है. So he is of a curious mind. So this is also an epithet that has been used for him. Okay, so these three epithets have been used for him: Chitrakar Puli, then Chaitya Kari, and Vichitra Chitta. Is this clear? So remember these terminologies. Now when we come to Narasimha Varman, he established the city of Mamallapuram. After defeating Pulikeshin II, he took the title of Vatapi Konda, जो वातापी के लिए बहुत खतरनाक हुआ, destroyer of Vatapis. So he is taking that title, he is coming back, and he is building the city of Mamallapuram. So he was a great Mamalla, he was a great wrestler. That is why the city was known as Mamallapuram, or as you know, the Sanskrit terminology, Mahabalipuram. Is this clear? So this is something that we should keep in mind. Now when we are talking about their administration, their economy, the same thing will be applicable here as well. When we are talking about the religion that they are going to patronize, Hinduism, they are going to patronize. Okay, that is something which will remain common. When we are talking about society, again, not much will change. We'll discuss the change when we'll talk about Cholas. For this time period, it is going to remain the same. Now, when we are talking about Pallavas, in terms of culture, we discussed literature. When we are looking at the temple architecture, they are the ones who are associated with starting the Dravid temple architecture style. Okay, so they are the ones who will start the Dravid temple architecture style, which is going to reach its zenith during the period of Cholas. Okay, so Nagar, Gupta, Vesar, Chalukya, and Dravid, Pallava. Is this clear? When we are पहले राष्ट्रकूट पे आते हैं ना? नो, इट इज वेसर. वेसर में दोनों का मिक्सचर है. ठीक है, चलें. द्रविड़. नाउ हियर व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट देम, पंच रथ, महाबलीपुरम पंच रथ, that is an important example that you should remember. What are these Pancharatha temples? सही बोल रहे हैं, बताइए. See, these temples have been built by these rulers. They will be named eventually by people on the names of Pandavas. And this is a tradition which you will see. This tells us about the importance of epic tradition, Sanskrit epic tradition. We should be precise about that, because in Tamil also there are epics. So if you look at, let's say, Bhimbetka. तो भीमबेटका क्या है? भीम की बैठक. उसके नाम पे उसका नाम भीमबेटका हो गया. पांडव खोली, जहां पांडवों ने जाकर के, जहां पे वो लोग रहे. So if you look at the idea of sacred geography, there are various places which have been named after the characters of Sanskrit epic tradition. Okay, so from that the naming comes, and you will find these kind of things being prevalent even now. Once I remember I was traveling to Vaishali. So there I wanted to see the Ashokan pillar. So I was going there, and back then I was traveling in 2016. Back then it was very difficult to reach there क्योंकि बहुत बेहतर तरीके से वो पूरा सर्किट डेवलप हुआ नहीं था. तो I asked somebody that I want to go to Ashokan Pillar, कैसे जाना है वहाँ पे. तो उनको समझ में नहीं आया. He was a villager who did not understand it. तो फिर उनको मैंने समझाया, एक बड़ा सा ऐसे पिलर करके है, उसको देखना है, वहाँ पे आसपास ऐसे टीले जैसा बना होगा, स्तूप इज ऑल्सो देयर, तो वो जगह पे जाना है. तो उन्होंने मुझे कहा अच्छा भीम की लाठी जाना है, तो ये तो यहाँ से है सीधा, थोड़ी दूर पे है. सो दीज आर द वेज इन विच पीपल understand certain ancient cultures. So that might not be the same the way we understand it. Our understanding might be different, their understanding might be different. तो उनके लिए वो भीम की लाठी है कि भीम का आकार इतना बड़ा है तो उनकी लाठी भी इतनी बड़ी होगी, वो यहीं पर छूट गई है. तो इस तरीके की भी हमको बहुत सारी चीज़ें कल्चरल मेमोरी में दिखाई देती हैं. When we look at this Pancharatha, they were called Pancharatha, 5 temples, a group of 5 temples. We don't know कि इसका नाम कब पांडवों के नाम पे पड़ गया, but the way we know it today is named after the names of Pandav brothers and Draupadi. So there are 5 Rathas: Yudhishthir Rath, Bhim Rath, Arjun Rath, Nakul Sahadev Rath, and 1 Draupadi Rath. Okay. What becomes important about Pancharatha for us is that on the walls of these temples we find the portraits of Mahendra Varman as well as Narsingha Varman. तो ये हमारे लिए important क्यों है? On temple walls we find depictions of rulers as well. We find depictions of various deities. Along with them we find depictions of rulers as well. Is this clear? So that is another thing that you can remember. In Mahabalipuram, you also find the Great Penance Wall. When we look at the Great Penance Wall, it is a very beautiful example of the fusion of literary traditions in architecture. Why? Have you heard of Great Penance Wall? वो देखा है जिसमें ऐसे करके ऐसे बड़ा सा रिलीफ वॉल है, यहाँ बीच में से ऐसे खाली है और यहाँ पे हाथी बनाया हुआ है बड़ा सा. एनसीईआरटी में भी है. जस्ट लुक एट इट और गूगल इट, ग्रेट पेनेंस रिलीफ. Okay, so when we look at Great Penance Relief, it has been explained in 2 ways. One, the penance of Bhagirath, and second, the penance of Arjun. So one wall is telling 2 stories simultaneously. श्लेष अलंकार पता है आपको? और डबल ऑन्तोंद्रो, एक ही चीज से 2 मीनिंग निकलता है. So that is present here. Here there is a person who is shown in the mudra, as we say, or in the form of a tapasvi, or a person who is doing penance. He can be explained both as Bhagirath as well as Arjun. How he can be explained in both the ways, we don't have the time to go there here. That can be a separate topic of discussion some other time. Understand it here, that here we see a very beautiful fusion of literary tradition with architecture. That this is a particular figure of speech which has been used in architecture. So if UPSC asks you about relief sculptures, this is one very important relief sculpture from Mahabalipuram, the Great Penance Relief, which can be explained both as the penance of Bhagirath as well as the penance of Arjuna. Clear hai? Where is it located? Mahabalipuram, Mamallapuram. In 2019 बहुत सारे prominent newspapers में इसका photo आया था. Prime Minister visited there. So there was this photo with Chinese president जहाँ पे वो उसी के आगे खड़े थे, Great Penance Relief के ही आगे खड़े थे. ठीक है? Is this much clear? So remember this. You can also remember Shore Temple. These are the temples which we are going to discuss when we will discuss temple architecture style. What is important? Dravida temple architecture. I hope this much is clear. Relief sculpture क्या होता है? आप ही की क्लास में एक्सप्लेन किया था ना मैंने अभी. बिकॉज आई गेट कंफ्यूज, दो जगह अगर चल रहा होता है सेम पार्ट तो क्या होता है? सी व्हेन वी से रिलीफ स्कल्पचर, अगर ये दीवार है और इस दीवार में से ये ऐसे मूर्ति कार्व कर दिया, दिस विल बी अ, हाँ, द बेस विल बी this wall, that is going to be a relief sculpture. If the base of the wall is not present, if it is carved like that, this will be a freestanding statue. UPSC has used the term relief in questions of prelims examination twice in the last 10 years. So you should know these terminologies. एक क्वेश्चन हम कर भी चुके हैं जो अशोक वाला किया था हमने, कणगन हल्ली वाला, कहाँ रान्यो अशोक लिखा हुआ है, ठीक है? चलें, so this is what you need to remember when we are talking about the the topic of Harsha, Chalukya and Pallav. Now the next topic of our discussion will be Pal, Pratihar and Rashtrakoot. When we are talking about Pal, Pratihar and Rashtrakoot, how much importance should we give to this particular topic? See, in mains, one question has been asked on the cultural contribution of Palas with respect to Buddhism. When you look at prelims examination, in prelims examination, you can find some statements related to this, that too not in the last 10 years. Nonetheless, we should know important details related to these dynasties. Okay, so let us talk about them briefly. Pal, Pratihar and Rashtrakoot. Yes, they are developing it. चालुक्य, हाँ, और नागर का गुप्त, ठीक है? चलें, यहाँ पे आते हैं, क्या बात कर रहे हैं? These three are fighting amongst each other. Why are they fighting amongst each other? To control the area of Kannauj. Kannauj has become important. So what we need to remember from our examination perspective, that these three dynasties are fighting with each other. In the end, what is happening, that Pratiharas are going to take control of Kannauj finally. Was it a very successful thing to be celebrated by them? They became very weak in the course of a fight which was dragged for more than 200 years. So even after they took the control of Kannauj, they did not remain powerful enough to tackle the invasions of various individuals which had started taking place. Okay, so when we are talking about war, war eventually weakens everyone, no matter who is emerging powerful. Is this clear? So this is something that we need to keep in mind to understand the political milieu. We don't need to mug it up कि कौन किसको हरा रहा है, कौन किसको मार रहा है. What we need to remember here, important details related to cultural aspect. Is this clear? So one by one we are going to talk about this. Here, in 7th century, another development had happened in Arabia, is the rise of Islam. And when rise of Islam happened, Islam is going to spread both as a political as well as religious philosophy. So people pertaining to Islamic religion, they are also going to be present 7th century onwards. In which capacity? First in the capacity of traders and philosophers, and then in the capacity of rulers. Okay, so you will find a lot of traders coming from Arab as well. And this is a time when we will also start talking about Arab travelers. Is this clear? So this is one thing which we should keep in mind. Now let us talk about the Palas. What do you remember about Palas? Do you remember anything important? Huh. Nalanda University? Were you present in the class when we were discussing Gupta Empire? No, they are constructing Vikramshila University. Nalanda University was already constructed by Gupta rulers. In today's class only we have covered it. Okay. Who is constructing it? People will give donations. Okay? Yes. So, has Harsh constructed it or has Harsh given donation? I don't know how to explain it. You probably need to work a bit on the language. Both of them are not the same. Giving donation and constructing it, both of them has different meaning. Donation क्या होता है? दान. Construction क्या होता है? निर्माण. अरे जरूरी थोड़ी है, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन भी तो चला सकते हैं. कॉलेज है, कॉलेज को फंडिंग दिया जाता है. किस कॉलेज में पढ़े हैं आप? अरे कॉलेज का नाम तो होगा, डिसिप्लिन थोड़ी पूछ रहे हैं. ठीक है, लक्ष्मी नारायण कॉलेज ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी. क्या रोज बनता रहता है? हर साल बनता है? जवाब तो दीजिए ना, बहस नहीं, जवाब दीजिए. हर साल बनता है? जो टूटता, रेनोवेशन कहते हैं उसको, कंस्ट्रक्शन नहीं कहते हैं. हर साल थोड़ी होता है. फंड तो हर साल आता है ना, चाहे गवर्नमेंट से आए चाहे प्राइवेट से आए, फंड तो हर साल आता है. जहां टूटा फूटा होगा, पंखा टूट गया होगा, बिजली चली गई होगी, कहीं दीवार गिर गई होगी, तो वहां पे रिकंस्ट्रक्शन होगा. There was a question in UPSC which was asked where you needed to explain the importance of Nalanda University as a modern university. Okay, they had asked this question. Go through it and you will understand the idea of a modern university. When we say a particular university is a modern university, it does not need to be situated in modern times. The idea of modernity is a concept. It does not need to be based on in a particular chronological time frame. Okay, वो idea है, वक्त नहीं है सिर्फ. चलिए आते हैं पालस पे. So when we are talking about Palas, there is this important name of Gopal. Why Gopal is important culturally? He is establishing Odantapuri Mahavihar. That is why Gopal becomes important. If you don't know about it, please keep writing it down simultaneously. So Gopal is somebody who constructed Odantapuri Mahavihar. The next important person which we should remember is of Dharampal. Why Dharampal is important? He is constructing Vikramshila University. Okay. He is also giving a grant of 200 villages to Nalanda University for its functioning. Okay. So that is another thing that we need to remember, that grants being given by these rulers for the functioning of universities. He is someone who also established Somapura Mahavihar. So they are establishing universities, they are establishing Mahaviharas. That is another thing which we should keep in mind. Okay, what else are they doing? This is something which is important when it comes to their patronage to Buddhism, their patronage to educational institutions. What? Yes, they are going to patronize Vajrayana Buddhism. Okay, so they are going to send various sages to different areas, specifically to Tibet, to China, for spreading the message of Buddhism. So they are going to establish a cultural relation with other Southeast Asian countries. In which context? In the context of spreading Buddhism. Because Cholas are also going to establish a cultural connection with Southeast Asian countries. They are going to do so to spread Hinduism. When Palas are doing it, they are doing it to spread Buddhism. Is this clear? So remember that apart from that, we should also keep in mind the development of or the patronage being given to sculptural tradition. Okay, so they are also patronizing the development of sculptural tradition. What is going to be the base material? What kind of sculptures will be made? Stone and bronze. Okay, that is going to be present here as well. So stone statues of Buddha or Bodhisattva, bronze statues of Buddha and Bodhisattva. That is what they are going to patronize. So you can see that they have contributed immensely in the growth of Buddhism. Is this clear? When we are talking about the Mahaviharas, they are also patronizing a painting tradition there. Okay, what kind of painting tradition? Miniature paintings on the walls of Mahavihara. That is what they are doing. They are also patronizing painting tradition in manuscripts. Okay, what kind of manuscripts? Buddhist manuscripts. So there is one particular text from Madhyamika tradition, Pragya Paramita Sutra. Yesterday we talked about it. Who was the writer? Nagarjuna. So that text, they are taking it up. So over time, people were making copies, people were making manuscripts of these texts as well. So the manuscripts that we find from Pala period, on those manuscripts, apart from the writing, we also have paintings. Is that clear? So the tradition of painted manuscripts that you can also find here. Is this clear? Did they patronize literature as well? Vajradatta is a writer whose name we should remember. What has he composed? Lokeshwara Shatak. That is the name of the text that we need to keep in mind. During this time, there was a trader named Suleiman. So he has written about the conflict which Pal, Pratihar and Rashtrakutas were engaged in his diary. Okay, so that is another name which you can remember. For sure, which name you should be remembering? Lokeshwara Shatak by Vajradatta. Is this clear? So if we keep this information in mind, we can come to a conclusion that Palas were patronizing Buddhism at large scale, be it in literary sense, be it in the context of making sculptures or architecture or paintings. In all these arenas, they have given patronage for the development of Buddhism. Is this clear? So remember the cultural contribution of Palas. Now if we talk about the cultural contribution of Pratiharas, what is going to be their cultural contribution? Which religion are they going to patronize? Vaishnavism. When we are talking about Palas, Buddhism. When we are talking about Pratiharas, Vaishnavism. When we are talking about Rashtrakutas, Shaivism. Okay. So when we are talking about these people, is there any literary text that we need to remember? Pratiharas? No or yes? Kavya Mimamsa by Raj Shekhar. Kavya Mimamsa by Raj Shekhar. Which is the temple complex that they are patronizing? Batesar Temple Complex. Write it down, Batesar Temple Complex. The story of Batesar temple complex is also very interesting. When we are talking about Batesar temple complex, there was huge forestation around this temple complex. So what happened eventually, बहुत सारे डाकू रहने लग गए वहाँ पे. तो वहाँ पे चंबल के डाकू सुने हैं ना? तो वही एरिया मध्य प्रदेश की हम यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं. तो बहुत सारे ऐसे डकैत, देयर वर अ लॉट ऑफ डेकॉइट्स हु स्टार्टेड लिविंग देयर. सो नोबडी वाज एबल टू गो इनसाइड दैट premises. Why? Because they were living in that area and they also protected the area for a very long period of time in cultural sense. Okay, so eventually ASI से जुड़े हुए एक archaeologist रहे हैं बहुत respected, A.K. Mohammed. So he was the one who tried to have a negotiation with those dacoits that let us enter the area, we are not going to get you arrested, we are from ASI and we want to preserve these temples because they are culturally very important to us. And that is how we were able to go to that area of Batesar temple complex and preserve whatever was left there. Okay, so these kind of stories we will find too when we are talking about archaeology. Historians or archaeologists, they go through a whole lot of trouble to preserve our cultural heritage. Okay, in mains these kind of questions have been asked in UPSC कि cultural heritage को अगर हम protect करने की बात कर रहे हैं तो क्या उससे जुड़े हुए laws हैं, किस तरह का हमको way forward उसमें रखना पड़ेगा, because even after government putting in a lot of effort, we are not able to preserve our cultural heritage completely. So we need to also aware the people about the importance of our cultural and historical legacy. तो ये सारी भी चीज़ें यहाँ पे important हो जाती हैं. चलिए, let us come back to our topic of discussion when we are talking about Pratiharas. Al-Masudi is a traveler whose name you can remember. Again, he is also mentioning the details of the tripartite struggle. Is this clear? Now let us come to the Rashtrakutas. What is important about Rashtrakutas culturally? Have you heard of Krishna first? He patronized building of Kailashnath temple. Okay, so Kailashnath temple was built by the patronage of Rashtrakuta rulers. The precise name will be of Krishna first. So they are also patronizing building of architectural monuments. So here Krishna first becomes important in the context of patronizing building of Kailashnath temple. There are a few other temples जहाँ हमको नाम नहीं मिलता है. For example, there is a Pataleshwar cave. So we don't find the exact name whom patronized it, but it was built during this period. We also see building of Elephanta caves with the efforts of Rashtrakuta rulers, and there the Trimurti becomes very important. What is the Trimurti? तो किसकी मूर्ति है वो? शिव, which is depicting various aspects of Shiva's personality. अगर आप महाराष्ट्र सदन जाएं या सीपी में अगर आप जाएं, there is this coffee house. कॉफ़ी हाउस के बगल में महाराष्ट्र जो गवर्नमेंट का टेक्सटाइल वाला वहाँ पे ब्रांच है, तो उस पर आप देखेंगे कि जो उसका वॉल है उस पर एलिफेंटा का त्रिमूर्ति ही उन्होंने लगाया हुआ है. सो इन महाराष्ट्र टूरिज्म दिस बिकम्स अ वेरी प्रोमिनेंट सिंबल. ओके, सो दिस त्रिमूर्ति बिकेम वेरी important, and whose murti or sculpture is it? It is a sculpture of Shiva depicting various facets of Shiva's personality. Is this clear? So remember making of Elephanta cave as well. In Elephanta cave, a particular sculpture of Kalyan Sundar has also been depicted, which is going to become a very prominent sculpture which will be depicted in temples dedicated to Shiva. What is the meaning of Kalyan Sundar? Marriage of Shiva and Parvati. Kalyan, that means a divine marriage. Sundar, one name of Shiva. So depiction of Kalyan Sundar. Is this clear? Now if we have to talk about literature, Amogh Varsh, what is important about Amogh Varsh? He composed Kaviraj Marg. Okay, under the influence of a Jain monk, Jinsen, he converted to Jainism and also performed Sanlekhana. So we have one example of Chandragupta performing Sanlekhana. He converted to Jainism under the influence of Jain monk Bhadrabahu. We have another example of Amoghavarsh, a Rashtrakuta king who converted to Jainism under the influence of Jain monk Jinsen, and Amoghavarsh also practiced Sanlekhana. Is this clear? So remember this about Amoghavarsh. When we are talking about Kaviraj Marg, the language is Kannada. So here, what I want to emphasize upon, now the rulers will start patronizing vernacular languages as well. And from this period onwards, you will see development of vernacular languages as well as literature. Wherever there will be a prominent example, I'll tell you about that. Okay? Remember Kaviraj Marg in that context. Is this much clear? There is a particular temple type of Sarvato Bhadra temple style, which Rashtrakutas are facilitating. What do we mean by Sarvato Bhadra? So Sarvato Bhadra is a kind of temple where you have 4 gates in the Garbhagriha. When we use the term Garbhagriha, Garbhagriha means that a chamber where the main deity of the temple resides. Okay. Now, when we enter a particular temple, there is one gate, जहाँ से हम जाते हैं अंदर. सर्वतो भद्र में क्या है कि there are 4 gates on all the 4 sides. Okay. So when we are looking at their style of temple making, we find some of them belonging to Sarvato Bhadra style. Is this clear? So remember these cultural contributions of these people. If we talk about political setup, administrative setup, economic setup, feudal, that is going to remain the same. If we talk about, there is one difference in the context of army that you can remember. When we are talking about a Pala ruler, the prominent war animal in their army was elephant. Okay, and in the other 2 was horse. Otherwise, things are going to remain more or less the same. Is this much clear? Okay. So, this is something that you need to remember from the topic of tripartite struggle. Now, they are having horses. I said prominent war animal. तो prominent कौन है? आर्मी में पैदल वाले भी सैनिक हैं, घुड़सवार भी हैं, हाथी वाले भी हैं. ठीक है? Prominent कौन होंगे ज़्यादा? पाल में हाथी. ठीक है? जब हम बात कर रहे हैं प्रतिहार और राष्ट्रकूट की, तो प्रोमिनेंट कौन हो जाएंगे? हॉर्स वाले. ठीक है? चले. Now let us understand one particular idea, then we can stop for today. We have some time now? We have 5-6 minutes. Okay? So I'll explain you one idea and then we'll stop the class for today. Have you heard about temple-centered urbanization? What do we mean by temple-centered urbanization? Kind of a temple city. Can you elaborate upon it? पॉलिटिक्स तो वर्ड मत यूज कीजिए क्योंकि टेम्पल है और इकोनॉमी है. अरे तो राजा मंदिर में थोड़ी बैठा है जाके. मंदिर तो पूजा करने जाएगा ना, जाएगा तो. See, let me explain it. This is a time when we see building of temples. Okay, it will take some time, but within a span of, let's say, a few decades, there are going to be rulers who are going to build bigger temples. Okay, when temples are being made, and specifically under Cholas, we are going to understand this phenomenon in a very prominent way. Okay, so there is R. Champak Lakshmi, and she is the one who has given the idea of temple-centered urbanization. What she is arguing, when we are talking about the economic setup in feudal sense, here economy is ruralized, that is one thing that we understand, and decline in long distance trade. So our city is not going to be present at all. They are going to be present in the context of being a political center and at times as cultural centers. Okay, so she is giving this idea that if there is a, let's say, very big temple in a particular region and people are flocking there for the purpose of worship, what will eventually start happening? When we go to any religious place, you will find that there are various shops. They are selling items which are required for worship purpose. Okay, take modern days example to make it more understandable for you. If you, let's say, if you go to a particular temple, let's say if you go to Haridwar. So if you go to Har Ki Pauri, it is different from other areas of Haridwar. If you go to Banaras, if you go to Godalia, so Godalia Chowk is different from other regions of Banaras. If you go to Ajmer, if you go to the Dargah, that area is different from the other regions of Ajmer. What is different there? And why things are a bit different there? Because we'll find presence of various shops catering to the worship need. Okay, so various shops will gradually start coming up. These shopkeepers are not going to do long distance travel. They'll start settling down in nearby areas. And for them, things of daily needs will be required. So for that, various shops will start coming up. If devotees are traveling to this area from a far off region, eventually they'll need places, lodges, sarais to stay in. So these kind of settlements will start coming up. They'll need food, cooked food to eat. So those kind of settlements will start coming up. Okay. With this, let's say if there is a particular person who has come और उसने दुआ मांगी कि मेरी दुआ कबूल हो गई तो मैं इतने सारे ये मान ले कि 1000 दिए भगवान के नाम पे जलाऊंगा. अब रोज तो आएंगे नहीं दिया जलाने. What will they do? They'll contact somebody. They'll give them a donation of, let's say, a few cows. और क्या बोलेंगे कि इसके दूध से जो घी आएगा उसको मंदिर में दे देना. They'll contact a potter. उनको बोलेंगे कि इतने दिए बना करके हर रोज मंदिर में दे देना. And this is how a whole different kind of economy which is centered around a temple that will start developing. So these people are not practicing agriculture. They are involved in non-agricultural aspect of economy, in craft production, in pastoralism, in trade. They are involved in these aspects of economy. It will gradually develop as a city. So urbanization will develop due to the presence of a prominent temple in a particular area too. Okay, so here they need not conduct long distance trade to survive as a city. The city will survive itself due to the presence of a temple in its premise. Is this clear? So we'll see development of a lot of cities due to temple-centered urbanization. Is this clear? So this is a particular concept that you should keep in mind because we are going to talk about various temples when we'll discuss temple architecture. Is this clear? कोई question है आज की क्लास से? सब clear है? We can stop it here, and in the next class we will discuss a few questions first and then we'll move on to Chola Empire. Okay? Chalo, have a good day.